Liam's 7th birthday party, laughter children laughing all over the backyard. Rachel standing among her friends, wearing a tight cream dress, smiling brightly, as if everything she ever wanted was in her hands. I stood quietly near the juice table, my hand quickly wiping the ice cream stains on Liam's shirt, my heart still full of love. I bake cookies, clean, blow balloons. It's all part of the routine. No one asked, no one thanked me. I just did it. Rachel approached me. Her smile was no longer as bright as before, but had changed to a kind of neutral tone. Her voice sounded like she was about to say something important. Mom, it's time for us to have some space. I straightened my head and blinked. The words were simple, but in that moment I heard it as if it were a verdict. What do you mean? I asked, my voice unable to hide the choking and tears. My daughter-in-law, Rachel, breathed a sigh of relief. It's just, Liam's grown up, and we want to do things on our own. Maybe you should leave to rest. Take some time for yourself, Mom. My tears fell one by one. I just nodded, but inside everything exploded. I had lived here for 6 years. 6 years. Taking care of Liam's nephew, housekeeping, cooking. No resentment, not a day off. And now, I am the one who has been asked to leave like a used item and trash lying on the street. I turned my face away so no one could see the wetness in the corners of my eyes. Inside me, something began to crack. Not because I was pushed out of this house, but because of the way they do it, gently, politely, but empty. No affection, no gratitude, no emotion. That night, I didn't have dinner with everyone. I went into my room, closed the door, and sat down next to the old suitcase under the bed. One hand zipping, the other smoothing down my folded jacket. I couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, while Derek was making coffee, I walked into the kitchen. You don't mind? I asked, my eyes searching my son. He paused. Mom, don't get me wrong. We just thought you deserved some space. You need a break, right? I didn't answer. I looked at him as if I were looking for the child who had hugged me when I fell, who had held my hand on the first day of school. But that child was gone. In his place was a grown man, avoiding his mother's eyes, not daring to be direct. That afternoon I packed up. There wasn't much. A few clothes, a few books, a small photo frame with a picture of Liam grinning in his Halloween costume last year. I packed it all up, like packing up a chapter of my life that had been gathering dust. Margot, my sister, was the first person I called. Her voice cracked when I asked if the old cabin in the Oregon woods was still available. It's always there for you, Evelyn. I didn't say another word, but when I hung up, I sat there for a long time, my hands clasped around the frame. Something inside me had died. 2 days later, I left. Derek helped me carry my luggage to the car, but there was no hug, no word of farewell. Rachel stood at the door, smiling faintly as if sending off a guest who had stayed too long. Liam was busy watching TV, completely unaware that his grandmother was walking out of his life without a word of goodbye. The car started moving. The city slowly receded behind. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to see that house, that person, those years taken for granted ever again. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew that from now on, everything I did would be for me. Margot lay on a pine-covered hill, quietly looking out over a small valley where the sky was always a quiet blue. The 2-story wooden house old, but every step I took was greeted by the creaking of wood. The scent of lavender and dried cinnamon wafted from the small kitchen, making me feel like I was being embraced by something ancient and gentle. I'll clean up the attic for you, Margot said as I stepped through the door, carrying a small suitcase. You're like the morning sun. I just nodded, not needing many words. Right now, the only thing I needed was to have no expectations. The first morning here, I woke to the sound of birds tapping on the window, not the alarm or the sound of children running down the hallway. I pulled the curtains and threw open the windows. The wind carried the smell of tree sap and damp earth, seeping into every pore. For the first time in years, I didn't have a to-do list. No breakfast to prepare. No one waiting for me to wipe the kitchen counter or put the children to bed. I started the day by planting some tomato seedlings in the back garden, a small plot that Margot had long since abandoned. I tilled the soil, planted bamboo stakes, and covered it with straw. My fingers were sticky with dirt, but my heart was lighter than ever. There is something magical about planting. You don't have to say a word, but they grow under your touch. In the afternoon, I went into the kitchen, baking an apple pie from my mother's old recipe. The smell of baking powder and cinnamon filled the wood-burning stove. Margot walked in, raising her eyebrows in surprise. Evelyn Monroe is baking? I think you just mixed up the quick dough from the supermarket box. I laughed. You just need to calm down and remember that you used to know these things. We ate dinner on the porch, watching the sunset turn the sky orange and listening to the chirping of insects. No one asked me if I was doing the dishes. No one asked me to do anything. Margot just poured me tea, handed me a book, and said, "Reading." I started going to the small town library every Monday. One day, I asked the older librarian if they had a reading program for children. "There's no one to guide us, so we have to wait," she said, her voice sad. "Do you want me to try?" I asked. That Saturday, I sat down on the sun-shaped rug in the middle of the children's reading room, holding Charlotte's Web. A group of children sat around me, their eyes shining as if they had never heard anyone read to them in such a gentle voice. Some rested their heads on my knees. Some giggled when I changed my voice to Spider. After I finished reading, a curly-haired girl approached. "You tell stories like a fairy," she said. I smiled, feeling the same sparkle in my heart as when I raised Liam, but this time without the fatigue or obligation. Over the next few weeks, I lived at my own pace. I gardened in the mornings, read in the afternoons, and sat on the porch in the evenings hand-embroidering or baking. I learned to drink tea without thinking about the clock. I gazed at the moon without worrying about having to wake up early the next morning. I used to believe that my worth was tied to serving others. Now I understood. I, too, deserved peace, care, and life just because I was me. One day, as Margot and I were cutting mint in the yard, she looked at me and said, "You know what, Evelyn? You smile more." I paused and looked up. "I don't know when the smile disappeared," I whispered. And in that moment, I felt something very clear. I was no longer living to maintain the image others expected of me. I was living to find the woman I once was, and maybe more. That afternoon, I was weeding around the bean patch when the phone in my pocket rang. The old bell, blowing in the wind through the pine trees, made my heart stop. I wiped my hands on my shirt and pulled out the phone. The caller ID was clearly displayed on the screen, Derek. I stood still for a long moment, my finger hovering over the answer button. It was the first call since I'd left his house. No text asking how I was. No holiday greetings. No birthday calls. And now, all of a sudden, what was this? I pressed the answer button. His voice was soft. "Mom? It's me, Derek." I said shortly, quietly walking up the porch to sit on the wooden chair. "How are you? It must be peaceful up there, huh?" "Hey, Mom." "Liam, he misses you. He's been talking about you for weeks. Summer's almost here. We both work part-time. If you're free, would you like to come visit?" "He misses me?" In the 6 years we'd been together, Rachel had never let him stay more than 2 nights in a row. Whenever I tried to comfort him, she'd cut me off. And when I left, there was no drawing or goodbye hug. Derek paused as if he were waiting. But then he continued. This time his voice was softer, more skeptical. "Oh, one more thing." I closed my eyes. That was it. We just signed Liam up for a summer programming program. It's pretty good, teachers from MIT world class. But it's a little expensive, the amount. About $4,500. We're trying to figure it out, but if you have it, can you help us? So Mom wasn't just babysitting. She was also a source of money. Just stay with him. And if you can, help me with my tuition. I clenched my fists. All these years, I had been a shadow in his house, working for free without a word of thanks. Meals, sleep, days of taking Liam to school and back in the rain, all boiled down to a single request for money. "Mom, if you can help us." I took a deep breath and answered, my voice still soft. "Where will I stay when I get back?" The house is a little cramped," Derek stammered. "Maybe I can stay in the living room, on the sofa, like before." I chuckled a bitter laugh. That house was where I cooked every meal and did every dish. But in their minds, I was still just a temporary guest. "Can't you two handle it?" Derek was silent for a moment. We're on a tight budget. Rachel just got her car fixed, and Liam needs school supplies. You know, everything's expensive. I closed my eyes. A new car, a fancy summer camp, and the offer was a hard couch and the money they needed. After call, I sat in silence for a long time. My hands were in my lap, my mind blank. Not because of Derek's request, but because of the disappointment that was coming. I wasn't remembered for who I was. I was remembered for my convenience, for what I could give. That night, I told Margot everything. She looked at me, shook her head. Evelyn, don't come back. They don't want you. They want your wallet and your power. You've paid enough. I didn't answer, but inside me another seed had sprouted. Maybe I would come back, not to serve, but to end things on my own terms. I agreed to come back, but this time I didn't say yes so quickly. Not to give up everything to come back. Not to abandon my faith as if I had nothing left to lose. I came back with a plan, with limits, and with dignity. Instead of returning to the house that had been my home for 6 years, I rented a small apartment 3 blocks away. It wasn't fancy, just a bedroom, a kitchenette, a window overlooking the park, but it was mine. It was the only place I knew for sure where I wouldn't be treated like a burden or a tireless work machine. I told Derek and Rachel when I would be there. Not abruptly, like someone who needed forgiveness, but invited and with conditions. That morning, when I walked into the familiar house, Rachel opened the door. Her face broke into a polite smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. I'm home. Liam will be happy to see you. I nodded, calmly replying, I'll start babysitting tomorrow. Mornings, evenings. I've rented a house nearby. Rachel paused. Mom, aren't you staying with us? The living room is the same as before. No need, I interrupted gently. I'm not old enough to be on the couch anymore. I need a good night's sleep to take care of you. She fell silent. I saw a very fragile emotion in Rachel's eyes, as thin as ice on glass, but clear confusion. Then alertness. Liam ran out of the bedroom. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. He hugged me, his voice echoing through the house. Grandma, you're home. I bent down to hug him, my heart sinking for a moment. There was something there, a feeling that no amount of denial or indifference could erase. He turned to Rachel. Mommy, will Grandma read to me tonight? Rachel hesitated. Grandma, she's not sleeping here, honey. Liam's face fell. Liam, but Grandma will come every day. We'll do fun things. Rachel's eyes narrowed slightly, and I knew she had just seen what she didn't want to see. Liam had chosen me, not out of force, not out of habit, but out of love, something I had given unconditionally for 7 years that no one but that child had ever really seen. A few days later, I arrived on time. 8 a.m. No earlier, no later. I just took care of Liam. No dinner, no dishes, no laundry, no useful sweeping or folding towels. I kept the unspoken agreement I'd made with myself. One day, Rachel walked through the living room, saw me drawing with Liam, and her face crumpled as she saw her son laughing at my terrible drawing. You need to make dinner, Liam, she said. I'm not staying. It's okay, he said. I taught you how to make cheese bread. You can do it yourself. I saw Rachel swallow and turn away. Before, she thought I was only valuable when I carried things. Now, when I didn't take out the trash, didn't do the dishes, didn't wear out my heels like I used to, she found herself being compared. Not by my actions, but by my presence. One evening, as I was leaving, Rachel stopped me at the door. Mom, don't you think you're ruining Liam's relationship? She said, her voice strained. He needs to learn to be independent, and you're here all day, and then you come home, and you're ruining him. I looked at her. I'm here because you asked me to. I'm on time. I'm doing the right thing. If Liam's relationship is ruined because someone loves him unconditionally, then maybe it's not me. Rachel was speechless. Her lips pressed together, but she didn't answer. I left, crossing the threshold as if leaving a theater where the old play had ended, and I was no longer there. That evening, in my small apartment, I made tea, opened the window, and for the first time in years, I smiled at myself in the mirror. Not the woman who had been rejected, but the one who had returned in her own way. Quietly, things began to change, like a still lake moving beneath me. I wasn't trying to win. I wasn't competing with Rachel. I was just there every morning I came, Every night I came, doing my part. I took Liam to the park, read to him, taught him how to make cookies, taught him how to water the plants. No big deal. But for a child growing up with busy, silent parents, every moment counted. Liam slowly began to change. He became gentler, learned to listen, learned to say thank you and sorry without being reminded. One afternoon, when Jason came home from work, he ran up to me and handed me a piece of paper, a doodle of the two of them under a tree. "Grandma and I were at the park today, Dad," Liam said. "Grandma told me a story, and she said that love is unconditional. She said that if you care about someone long enough, they know you matter." Jason stared at the paper. He bent down, stroked his son's hair, and then looked up at me, a hesitant, thoughtful look. For the first time in a long time, I saw the eyes of the boy I had comforted, not defensive, not evasive. That evening, Jason walked into the kitchen as I was washing my hands to get ready to leave. Rachel was putting leftovers in the refrigerator, her movements stiff. "I think you should stay for dinner," Jason said, his voice low but clear. "Liam's been saying all day that he wants you to read to him before bed." I turned to Rachel. She stiffened. Her shoulders jerked, and she slammed the lunchbox down on the table as if it hurt her. "Are you sure?" Rachel asked, her voice higher than usual. "You want her here, every day, every night? Can't you see it's getting worse?" "Nothing's wrong," Jason replied, still looking at me. "I just see my son happier." Rachel turned, her voice cracking through her shell. "I cook, I go to school, I organize things, and she comes in, tells a story, and suddenly she's the most loved person." I stood still holding the towel. The words were familiar. Deep down, I had expected Rachel to react this way, not because I was wrong, but because I was no longer doing things the way they wanted. Rachel continued, her voice shaking not with anger, but with loss of control. She only did what she wanted. She wasn't allowed to do everything I did. I looked at her, not angry, not reacting. I just said calmly, slowly, "And that's the difference. I did everything unconditionally for 6 years. Didn't ask for anything. Didn't complain. But I learned that if love is only appreciated when you give it all, then it's not love. It's exploitation." Rachel clenched her fists. Her eyes burned as if I had slapped her. But I didn't stop. Not for revenge, but because the truth needed to be told. "I sacrificed because I thought I should," I continued. "I didn't expect anything in return. But being ignored, pushed away, called trouble, that's something no decent person deserves." Jason stepped closer, hesitant. "Mom, I'm sorry it got this far. You're the one who taught me how to love, the one who taught Liam to feel warmth. And I didn't see it in time." I just nodded. I didn't need to apologize to forgive, because I had learned not to wait for anyone to acknowledge my kindness anymore. Rachel fell silent, then abruptly turned away. Her footsteps were quick and rough. She disappeared through the bedroom door, slamming it behind her as if to confirm that this wasn't the end of the storm that was brewing. I didn't react. I slowly grabbed my coat, turned to Jason. "I'll be there in time tomorrow morning." "Thanks, Mom," he said, his eyes sad. I walked out of that house, the summer night still warm and quiet. But I knew inside Rachel something had just broken, and inside me something was still strong. Every afternoon after picking Liam up from school, I took him to the park near our house. It wasn't a special place, just a small patch of green in the middle of town with a few swings, a chip slide, and a row of crooked wooden benches. But for children, a big enough space can be the beginning of a whole imaginary world. At first, we just sat in a quiet corner, reading. I brought my old children's books, all of which Liam and I had spent years with. I told. He heard stories about kindness, patience, and how kindness can nourish the heart. One afternoon, as I was telling the story of the lost bear cub, another child came and sat next to me. Then another, and then a group of small children gathered, all eagerly listening. A young mother came with her baby, stood listening for a while, then gently sat down on the grass. After a while, she turned to me and smiled. "You tell stories like magic. Children are drawn to every word." I just smiled back. Children don't need much, just someone who really sees them, who listens to them with all their heart. From then on, reading became a habit. Every Wednesday and Saturday afternoon, I brought a blanket to spread on the grass, a basket full of books, and some small cakes. The children waited for me like a fairy in a fairy tale. And suddenly, Evelyn Monroe, who had been a burden in someone's house, became the Aunt Evelyn of the whole neighborhood. "Grandma, tell me a story about a dragon today," said a cheeky blonde boy. "And the story about the lost fox," the girl sitting next to me chimed in. I just nodded, opened the book, and began to read in my deepest voice, as if each word were candy for the children's imagination. More mothers began to come and sit, not just to watch their children, but to listen. One time, a young girl came over as I was putting away the books. "Aunt Evelyn," she said, "I tried your method with Liam yesterday." Instead of scolding him, I sat down next to him and asked him how he was feeling. For the first time, he said he was sad because he didn't make the soccer team. I looked at her and smiled. There is no formula for love. But if there is a secret, it is this. Stay close to the child's heart, don't focus on it. Gradually, the atmosphere in that park changed. There was less screaming, more hugs, and in the eyes of strangers I saw wordless gratitude for something simple but powerful. True love is undemanding, unconditional. One evening when I dropped Liam off, Jason was waiting at the front door. His face was unusually pensive. He opened the car door for me, saying nothing until we stopped in front of my house. "Mom," he said, his voice low but clear, "what did you do to make Liam change so quickly? He's more polite, more considerate. He told me that you taught him to be not just good, but kind." I nodded slightly. Children don't learn by words. They learn by love, by how they are treated. Jason bowed his head. After a moment, he looked up, his eyes moist, as if for the first time in years he could really see me. "I owe you more than I ever thought possible," he said. "You're the only one who never left me. Even though you ignored me, even though you left me in the dark corners of your own home." I touched his arm lightly. I didn't do it all for the reward. I did it for love. But I learned something too. Love, even unconditional love, needs to be respected. Jason nodded, slowly. "I understand. And I'll teach Liam that just as you taught me." I looked at him, not as someone who had forgiven, but as someone who believed he was worthy of love, too. On a bright morning in early fall, when the dew still clung to the edges of the mint leaves in the yard, the doorbell to my cabin rang. There was no one knocking. It was the postman, and in her hand was a small, slightly crumpled envelope, scrawled in childish handwriting on the outside. "Mrs. Evelyn." I took it, my heart slowing. I knew at first sight. Liam. I carried the letter into the kitchen, placing it on the wooden table next to the gently simmering teapot, my hand shaking slightly not from nervousness, but from the many nameless emotions that were welling up inside. I opened the envelope slowly as if it were a rare treasure, which in my heart it really was. Inside was a drawing. Thick brush strokes, crumbly wax stuck to the edges of the paper. A green tree, curved like a sunshade. At the base of the tree, a silver-haired woman sat reading, holding the hand of a small boy. Above them, 3 birds flew in an arc. Below were the words written in a mixture of pen and ink. "You are the person who makes me feel the safest in the world." No embellishment, no comparison, no embellishment, but enough to make me put my hand on my chest, where my heart, once aching from being considered redundant, now aches with true happiness. I get up and walk to the old, opaque white refrigerator in the corner of the kitchen. Stick a magnetic drawing of a strawberry. Nothing fancy, nothing to display like a trophy. Just a reminder that the love I gave hasn't disappeared. It's taken root, it's blossomed. I didn't call Derek back. I didn't text Rachel. I didn't ask them if they knew what their son had sent me. I didn't have to, because true love doesn't need to be ostentatious to be validated. Nor did I go back to that house. The house where I'd been treated like a shadow. I didn't need to go back to know how much I loved them and how much I'd been hurt. I just sat down on the wooden chair by the window, looking out at the garden where the last tomato plants were turning, then up at the light clouds drifting over the hilltops. The sky was blue, the sun just right. A hen was calling to her chicks in the yard. The peace didn't scream. It just came as soft and clear as that little letter. I thought back to all the years, the thankless meals, the restless nights my niece had stayed up, the evasive looks, the words wrapped in silk, but sharp as needles. Then I think of those afternoons in the park, the laughter of children, the eyes of mothers, the look in Jason's eyes when he finally looked at me with the eyes of a son who has realized what is important. And I know I am not left behind. I am chosen. No one controls my time anymore. No one defines my worth by how many times I do the dishes or take out the trash. I am Evelyn Monroe, Liam's grandmother, Margot's sister, the woman who waters the plants, reads books, makes jam, and teaches children to be kind. I don't need a fairy tale ending. I don't need applause from the stage I was pushed off. My life is no longer the story they wrote. I have my own notebook, and today I added a line to it. Not left behind, but chosen to live.